A common mistake that I see people make when it comes to their video strategy is they focus so much on creating content without realizing that their profile is just as important, if not maybe even more important, because it could be why you're not seeing results with your strategy. If you've experienced slow or no growth on social media, you have really low engagement with your content, or you find that you have low conversions and sales from social media, this could be why. And you want to keep on listening, and I'm going to break down how to create a profile experience. This all dials down to the 3-part follower journey. So essentially, whether it's the content that you're creating or the profile experience that we're going to be mapping out, you want to make sure that it's catering to all 3 parts of this follower journey. This is discovery. So when someone comes across your social media page and they're deciding to follow you. This includes nurture, which is often the phase that people spend the most time on, which means you're creating great content for serving your community and essentially turning them into warm leads, which is the 3rd part of the follower journey. This is where your super fans, your warmest warm leads that are ready to purchase from you. Essentially, we want to make it really easy for no matter where they are in that follower journey for them to make the decision we want them to make, like following us, engaging with our content, and buying our offers. Welcome back to the Back to Basics series. In the first iteration of this series, we talked all about content pillars and how it's a really important part of your strategy, and profile experience is probably like the next most important part of your strategy. And in my signature framework that I cover inside the Video Content Camp, my signature program, I deep dive into strategy first and foremost, and these are the core elements that we cover. There's an entire lesson on this profile experience concept that I'm going to be diving into this iteration of the series, including a checklist for optimizing your profile, but also the ability to get my eyes on your profile. So if you're interested at all, I will leave it in the show notes or the description for you. Okay, so what is a profile experience? Essentially, it's how all the different components of your profile work together to support that follower journey. So for example, if we're talking about Instagram, this is including your bio, this is including your highlights, your stories. This also is including your grid, which could include grid pins, and also the little tabs on Instagram, like your Reels tab or even guides. And I want to give an example of how this stuff really works. So I was just wrapping up a launch and I was going through and updating my profile. So I changed the call to action line in my bio. I went in and updated my grid pins. So instead of them being launch and sales focused, I turned them into just nurture content where I was introducing myself and I was including a post that had a call to action to my freebie. Just by doing those simple changes, I noticed that new followers were starting to engage with those pieces of content, but also more people were just starting to take action on them and actually joining my freebie and engaging with those pieces of content. So when I tell you this works, it works. So this is the checklist that we want our profile experience to achieve. So these are the things you want to be thinking about when you're optimizing your profile. And it's a sneaky peek of what I cover inside the camp. So the first thing is that people are looking for answers to something. They're looking for solutions. I know I often will go to someone's profile, like I'm thinking of one of my favorite food bloggers. Whenever I'm sitting down to meal plan, I will go to their grid and I will scroll and look through content to easily find that solution. Another one is if people are just getting to know you, your offers, your philosophy, your story, your products. This is one that people often miss because you want to make sure it's very easy for people to get to know you, whether they're completely new or they're considering working with you. You don't want them to theorize on how they can do that. Another one is if they are ready to buy. And this is people that know they're ready to buy and they're looking for that solution. They're looking for that next step beyond just free content. But it's also people that are not aware that they're ready to buy. I know I'm probably not the only one where you've discovered an account where you're just like loving all the free content, which is like the goal of a profile experience. And you're like, okay, let me click that link in bio. Let me go on the stories and see like what's more for me. And when you find an offer that makes sense, then you're ready to buy. So we want to make sure we're leveraging those warm leads. Another one is to catch up on the latest content that you may have missed. This is often a reason why people binge your highlights, is maybe they feel like they've missed your most important stories and they want to catch up on something, or maybe they knew you did a Q&A on something and they want to find it again. This also can be just for people to binge. If they are loving your content, you want to be able to easily give them more of that content. And of course, with that 3-part follower journey, you want to make it really easy for them to decide if they want to follow you or not. So now that we've gone through the checklist of why your profile experience is so important, I want to share 4 tips for how this actually looks in your profile. Tip number 1 is for your grid. The easiest way to create a cohesive grid is just deciding on a theme. It can be one thing that just ties your grid together. It could be color, it could be the style of the visuals like graphics or photos. Whatever it is, just stick with that consistently, and that will pull everything together in a really effortless way. Your grid does not need to be perfect. It does not need to be aesthetic. It does not need to be curated to be effective, especially on a place like Instagram, but you want to make sure that it makes a great first impression. And it's definitely bonus points if it helps that navigation through your grid. If people can easily find the topics or content that they're looking for, we have a great grid. Tip number 2 is use your highlights as a space for adding in your best stories content. And this is something you can literally do today if you're already posting stories. So I recommend going back into your archives, maybe the past 90 days, and picking and choosing your best content and adding that to a highlight. My recommendations is always making sure your highlight is very, very specific and that it's not an ant trail and very, very long, so people can easily tap through it and see the type of content they're looking for. And just like you might have a theme on your grid, make sure that your covers match that. That could be color, that could be photos, that could be icons. There's so many options here, but stick with whatever you decide. Tip number 3 is make sure that your bio copy is optimized. I dive deep into this inside my program, but in short, you just want to communicate what your value is, what type of content you're creating, and who that content is for, and what you're an expert at. I always love to include a call to action in the last line of my bio that's kind of guiding them on where they should go once they follow that link in my bio. And this is the line of the bio that I always change the most frequently, depending on my call to action at that time. And tip number 4 is to pin your best 3 posts at the top of your grid. I did an in-depth video on my YouTube channel where I talk about different types of grid pin strategies, and trust me, it is a really great video if you want to dive deep into grid pins. But what I find is that there's 4 main categories that you should be thinking about pinning on your grid. This could be an introduction of yourself or your offers or your story. It could be sharing your most popular or valuable piece of content. It could be content that answers your most frequently asked questions. Or it could be anything that's related back to that call to action that you're wanting to promote. I hope you found this part of the Back to Basics series really helpful for just rethinking how you think about your profile to make sure that it's not the junk drawer, the most neglected part of your strategy, but that it supports all the video content that you're creating. If you are interested in diving deep into strategies just like this profile experience one, along with things like content pillars and your posting plan, I definitely recommend looking more into the video content camp because it'll help you build your entire strategy and I'll be alongside you. So all the details will be linked in the show notes, and I'll see you in the next Back to Basics series episode.